Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new to the channel, welcome. Hope you enjoy the content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Anyway, the brand new WWE event, Wrestlepalooza, has come and gone. Uh, some decent matches, but overall, I gotta say, somewhat lackluster of a event, especially since it was built up as this, big new show, the debut, premiere on ESPN. We're told expect shocks and expect surprises. And overall, it didn't really deliver. I mean, I know all the talk in wrestling was, that AEW was going to move their event back several hours because they didn't want to clash with Wrestlepalooza. In reality, they probably could have just had it at the same time because I think more people probably would have changed channel. But let me go through the event and talk about the matches. Start off with Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. Obviously, it was announced that that would be opening the show. Um, I suppose in a way we got somewhat of a surprise that Paul Heyman reunited with Brock Lesnar, to introduce him during the match. Now, if that was just a one off or if they are going to be, back together going forward at some point, I don't know. But in my predictions, I said that I thought this was going to be either end a no contest or end a disqualification. And it probably would have been better had it done that because at least it would have given us something. This was just, what we've seen in the past from Lesnar and Cena matches where, John gets a few shots in, but overall Lesnar dominates him. It's, spamming finishing moves, John Cena hitting multiple AAs, Lesnar hitting multiple F5s. Uh, and then, Lesnar pins him clean. So, realistically, it's a bit of a waste of a match, especially, when John's only got a few dates left of his, farewell tour. What exactly did this lead to, or what was the point of it? At least if it had been, uh, where Brock had said on Smackdown, he said to the camera, that he's coming to Wrestlepalooza for blood. Um, he's coming to, end Cena. It probably would have been better if the match had ended in a disqualification where, Lesnar went too far, and like similar to, the match with Randy Orton where, he busted him open with his elbows and everything. If he had done that, at least that would have been something, where, the referees had to, call the match off because Lesnar, won't stop. But the fact that it was just, multiple finishing moves and then Lesnar pins him, he walks around the ring again, gets in, F5's the referee, hits John with another F5, and then just walks out. It felt very lackluster opening to the show. John walked out of the ring. I thought at one point, that Lesnar was going to come back out, attack him, and drag him back to the ring and beat him up some more, but nothing. John just, waved to the crowd and walked out. So, this felt a very lackluster match, and it felt like a waste of, one of John's final matches. Again, I don't know what that builds up to, if there is going to be another match between them, or, what's next for John. Obviously, I think he's to appear, is it a Crown Jewel and Survivor Series. So we'll see what's next for that. Um, Up next was the tag match between the Usos and Breaker and Bronson. Uh, we had a little added thing to it. I didn't know this before the show and the pre-match show. There was an altercation between the two teams, and LA Knight was appointed as a special referee. So I had said in my predictions that I assumed that LA Knight would get involved in the match somehow. So I didn't know it was going to be as a referee. So I thought this worked out well. You know, Knight didn't, act like an actual referee. He just let them go at it. He wasn't, constantly in their face, trying to, pull them away from the corner, or, giving them a 5 count to, break up a hole or something. He just let them go at it, let them use, weapons. The only time he, got involved was if somebody, got physical with him. So it was good. And I was hoping that Breaker and Bronson would get the win, and they finished with the victory. I think it was Jay got put through a table, and then Bronson hit the tsunami off the top and pinned him. I think Jay got busted up. So it was a good match. And we'll see what happens going forward. I would like, at some point maybe, if they could have, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed go after the tag titles, if they win those, and then at some point you could have the Usos, challenge for a rematch at some point, so you could have them and the Usos facing off again for the tag titles. That would be an interesting thing. What was next? Next up was the women's title match. I thought it was probably the best match of the night in terms of the in-ring competitiveness, and some of the move spots. I thought that maybe Asuka was going to get involved at some point, but no, they just let Stephanie and Io go at it. Very back and forth contest, and Stephanie got the win. So great moment for her, and I'm looking forward to seeing Stephanie's title reign now in Raw, because I think it opens up a lot of great matches with her as champion. You have Stephanie versus Rhea, Stephanie versus Asuka, Stephanie versus Roxanne, versus Bailey. So very good match from her and Io. So, and I'm assuming that now this will end up leading to, because Io kept telling Asuka that she wanted to do this by herself, that Asuka's gonna, end up saying that, she failed, she lost because she didn't have Asuka and Kyrie, by her side. So I'm assuming that'll lead to that. Next match was the... what was it? Oh, it was a mixed tag match. Obviously, probably one of the most anticipated matches of the night. AJ returning to in-ring competition, teaming with Punk against Seth and Becky. I thought this was a well-worked match. Liked how they built up the anticipation to get AJ in the ring, and Seth and Becky did a great job of being the heels, of keeping her out of the ring for as long as possible. Every time Punk tried to make a tag, either the ref didn't see it because she was distracted, or uh, if she was about to get AJ was about to get the tag, Becky would have pulled her off the apron. So I think it was it was teasing the crowd a lot because the crowd were chanting, we want AJ. Uh, Ironically, that game plan sort of went out the window in the second half of the match because it turned into a sort of tornado style where nobody was tagging in. There was just all out brawl between the four of them, in the ring, outside the ring, on the announce tables. There was no uh, Becky was attacking Punk, AJ was attacking Seth. The two girls were attacking each other. The men were attacking each other. Uh, they were both locking each other in submission moves at the time. And, the ref wasn't saying like somebody's got to get out of the ring. It was just let them go at it. So I thought it was a very good match. AJ certainly has not missed a beat. With her in ring ability, you would not think she's been gone for so many years. Uh, I think it's. I wouldn't complain about it, but it did seem to go longer than I thought it would. There was a lot of times where it looked like you were going to end the match and then there'd be a very late kick out, or somebody at the last minute would, break up the submission. Um, but I think it was just a match where it was just, let them go out there, have fun, enjoy themselves. It's AJ's first match back. It's her uh, first time teaming with her husband. I think it was just a match where let them have their time, let them have their fun, and it finished with AJ getting the submission win on Becky. So we'll see what happens there. Now she's defeated the women's intercontinental champion. So does that put her in line for a title match in the future? And I'm assuming that the rivalry between Punk and Seth will not be going away anytime soon. Although, obviously with Crown Joe coming up, they're going to have the champion versus champion match. I assume in terms of the surprises for the night, we had Undertaker show up for an appearance. Stephanie was in the crowd at ringside watching the match. This is throughout, and it was a funny segment where Undertaker was on his bike riding out and he stopped in front of Stephanie. It was like one of those scenarios where like a comedian or something will pick out somebody in the crowd to address or something. So he's just like he got a microphone. He was addressing Stephanie about is there anybody sitting next to you and he climbed over speaking to her, and Stephanie was just like, where are we going with this? So basically he announced that Stephanie is the first official inductee for next year's WWE Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Stephanie on that. A great moment for her. I'm happy to see it. Look, I started watching WWE in November of '99. So my childhood was the beginning of the McMahon Helmsley era, Triple H and Stephanie, as the power couple and things. So it's great to see that Triple H in the Hall of Fame, and now Stephanie's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So a great moment for both of them. I think Triple H said during the post show that he's in deep trouble because obviously uh, this was a surprise for Stephanie, and she heavily looked like she was embarrassed. So great moment for them. Uh, so that leads us on to the main event, which was Drew versus Cody. This was a decent match. I wouldn't say it was great. It was decent. They they kept playing up to an angle during the match where it looked as if Cody wasn't 100%. He was sort of misstepping when going to hit a move, or he was pausing. So I think they were mentioning on commentary. Is Cody all right? Is there something wrong with him? But overall, he was still hitting his moves. So I don't know what was the plan. Drew ended up sort of hurting himself when he was trying to kick Cody through the announce table outside, and that basically played up to the end of the match where Drew was setting up to hit his finisher, the Claymore kick, but his leg gave out. Cody took advantage and got the win, another clean win, and that's how the show ended. No surprise return, no shock ending or nothing. Just Cody beats Drew, and roll the credits. And obviously in the post show they set up the champion versus champion match for Crown Jewel, which is going to be Cody versus Seth Rollins. As I said, it's just a very lackluster, finish, and a very lackluster opening. I mean, if there wasn't going to be any surprise returns or shocks, somebody appearing to confront Cody, would it really have hurt to have Drew go over here, as a big moment for WWE's new era on ESPN, to have a new champion crowned, and Drew becoming the new champion? Because I don't know what they're doing with Drew at the moment. He just can't seem to win the title, and when he does, it's for a few minutes, and then he's losing it to Damian Priest cashing in. But yeah, I don't know where Drew goes next with this, because he's had his feud with Damian Priest, he's had a feud with Randy Orton, he's feuded with Punk, he's feuded with Jay. Now he's had his feud with Cody, so I don't know what's next for him. Cody's obviously going to be focusing on his champion versus champion match with Seth. But I'd say overall, for all the build up to this big event, it just felt very lackluster. And I've seen like a lot of people, wrestling fans, saying online that overall, AEW's what is it called? It's not all Out. I was gonna say All In, but that's the other one. Overall, it was the better show. So I just think I thought. I say some decent matches in between. The women's title match, the mixed tag match with Punk and AJ. The Usos versus Braun and Bronson. They were all good, but just the opening of the show with Lesnar Cena was just, you know, a waste of time. And then the end of the show, it was a good match between, Cody and Drew. It just, there was nothing at the end of it. It was just end the match and, let's go to the credits and go to the post show. So, I don't know, just for all the build up, it just didn't really deliver. But we'll see what happens next now. Obviously, they're going to be building up to Crown Jewel. And we'll see what happens on Raw, if there's going to be any more follow up between Cena and Lesnar, or if that's their rivalry officially done. Obviously, at some point, Roman's going to have to come back. So we'll see what happens there. I'd assume they'll be building towards War Games and Survivor Series. There was like a tease at the NXT Homecoming of, something possibly between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, whether there's going to be involvement from NXT this year, where it's like, the old black and gold NXT versus the current new NXT. There's also been sort of a tease of, TNA wrestling, building up an invasion angle, because of all like the dislike for a WWE wrestler holding the TNA world title. So we'll see where that goes going forward. But as for Wrestlepalooza, it just felt very mediocre and average. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you watch the event? And what are your thoughts on the matches, the results? Lesnar Cena, did it, if it is the final match, to live up to the hype? And what next for Drew McIntyre now that he's lost cleanly to Cody Rhodes? I mean, they could say that he was injured or whatever, or maybe they might say that Cody finally did the right thing and he took advantage of an injured opponent. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on that. Drop a like and video, subscribe to the channel, that'd be very much appreciated, and I shall see you again for more reactions. Take care, I'll see you again.